Hey, sometimes it's good to be wrong. It,
Well,
it's
well, well. Remember, I was reluctant last week, but
but
I did say
we made our picks. We gotta live with them. We both picked the Carolina Panthers to lose today to the New Orleans Saints because we figured the Saints would be kind of fired up, ready to go. And I'm going to do something that I haven't done in a long time, maybe ever. I'm going to give Coach Matt Rule and defensive coordinator Phil Snow some credit because the Panthers, at least the defense, was fired up and ready to go. They're ready to play.
Yeah.
They came out and they played a great game. We'll talk a little more about the details later, but the defense set the tone, and the Panthers were able to win 22-14 and a game that maybe wasn't even as close as the score would indicate. There was some garbage time yards and touchdowns by the Saints at the end there. So interesting game because it's weird because Baker Mayfield is going to get a win on his resume and Skip Bayless will be very happy about that. But man, I need someone to convince me. We were debating with our brother Rodney, chatting during the game about Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold. And I'm sorry, you can't convince me right now. You can say whatever you want about Sam Darnold's tenure as a Panther, but his first 3 games as a Carolina Panther last season, he played great. And when he played terribly afterwards, we said what? Well, Christian McCaffrey went down. So that was the difference. Right. Well, Baker Mayfield had Christian McCaffrey all 3 games. And today, the O-line looked competent. They weren't blocking each other, like they normally do. It looked good. Baker had all the time in the world to throw. Now, sometimes receivers run open, but I saw him make some throws that people wanted to lynch Cam Newton for. Cam Newton might throw it 2 inches over a receiver's head, and people bring the pitchforks out. Boy, that was Baker Mayfield today. And honestly, I don't think the game should have even been as close as it was. We should have been 21-0 at the half. At least. Agreed. And I'm gonna place that on Baker. But the defense looked great. I felt like the defensive play calling looked really good. Phil Snow, I envision the Panthers have like a notebook. Like their playbook looks like a notebook, like maybe a trapper keeper or some stupid looking shit like that. And it's got the tabs for each scheme. And Phil Snow finally found the tab that says blitzes. Like he was like, yo, what's this? I can rush more than 3 people? Is this against the rules? Let me check with the league. And the pressure looked great today. Jameis Winston had a bunch of numbers, but it wasn't really all that effective. Great game by the defense. Offense got to catch up. Your thoughts, Jamal?
I think you saw coaches coach like their seat was hot as hell. I think you saw a coaching staff who realized, you know what, man, we might not get to live in this great city of Charlotte much longer if we keep losing them games. and kind of alluding back to what you said, as critical as we've been of Matt Rule throughout his entire tenure here in Charlotte, man, today, man, I have to give him his props, man. His team actually looked prepared to play, especially the defensive side of the ball. And on top of that, on the offensive side of the ball, it's kind of interesting to say this, but I thought the offense wasn't bad except the quarterback. Except the main part of the of the offense just quite simply wasn't that good today. I have to give Phil Snow a lot of credit, man, because it's tough to expect the Panthers to shut out the Saints the entire game. Matter of fact, it's unfair, especially when your offense is pretty dysfunctional the entire game and you keep going 3 and out, and the defense is having to keep running back on the field like every other down or whatever. So I have to give Phil Snow a lot of credit for making what in-game adjustments. Like you said, he finally, like the light bulb finally went out. Say, wow, I can blitz more than 3 people. I can rush more than 3 people. Wow. It is. I wish we had fancy stats today that would cover how effective blitzes were versus just rushing 3 or 4. I love the DB blitzes, man. I love how we made an adjustment to send Jeremy Chin on the blitz that resulted in a missed field goal for the Saints, man. That's coaching, and we have not seen examples of where we could give this coaching staff a lot of credit in a very long time. And this game was indicative of coaches on the hot seat, man. So for the first time in a year, the Panthers win, and under construction is giving the coaching staff credit. Man, what a Sunday!
A win changes a lot. I still don't think that Matt Rule is like the answer. But to be fair, and we've always said this, he said he was going to focus on the defense first, and they did. And I feel like he's built a pretty solid defensive unit. I think the play calling is not where it needs to be, but today was a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
I didn't see a single 3-man rush all game, and I was so happy about that. They did give up some big plays. Some of them are in garbage time, and I'll let those slide. But you let the Saints get back into it right at the beginning of the second half, and luckily Baker Mayfield fluked into it. I'm not gonna call it a fluke because that was a really, really good play by Laviska Shenault Jr. But I mean, really, who would have thought a check down would have gone for like a 67-yard touchdown?
Isn't it ironic that a check down was the play that gave us the only touchdown of the game?
We talked about that last week. Baker, I think, kind of presses to him. He looks to go downfield every time, which we like a quarterback that goes downfield, but you got to take the defense gives you sometime, and he wasn't doing that.
And let me say this, man. I actually will give the Saints some credit. I'll give them some credit on the defensive side of the ball. They kept everything in front of them, with the exception of the Shenault play. They kept McCaffrey in check for the most part. They did what they could with him. So I do give that defense a little credit. And I said this in the chat room, man. I do wonder, did the receivers have a little bit of trouble getting open, or was it just kind of bad play design? Meaning, are they running these predictable routes, man? Because it seems like, not often, but the times where the broadcast would show the aerial view of the receivers, and it kind of seemed like a lot of times they just were not open. So I can't put that on Mayfield too much, because at the very least, he did not turn the ball over. Let's be clear about that. He had a bad game and he missed some throws that he damn sure should have made. But at the least, he did not give the ball to the Saints, which I think is a pretty big deal, man. What are your thoughts on these receivers, man? Because it kind of feels like they were not open a lot as well.
You got to get open. Is the NFL?
Or you got to throw them open?
Yeah, this is the NFL. You're not going to just get open. So guys that were able to get, I'm going to go back to Panthers lore. Remember Greg Olsen?
Yeah.
He was always open. He was always open. So there's got to be.
And he ran a 5.4 in the 40.
Yeah, so dude was slower than me, but he was always open. And so I got to figure either that was, I don't think that was like great scheming, because the Panthers had never had these great offensive coordinators. It was just that he knew how to sit in zones, how to run routes effectively, how to do all the little things that separate NFL receivers from college receivers. I'm going to put that on our receivers, our receivers coaches, or even McAdoo, because sometimes the receiver's not open because the defense just calls the right play. Like the coverage was just really, really good. So, if the guy's not open and Baker has no one to throw to, that's one thing. But we kept seeing that over and over again. So I think that's a collective fail.
Yeah.
But yeah, Baker didn't turn the ball over, thankfully, and turnovers ended up being kind of the story of the game. That strip fumble of Alvin Kamara early in the game just kind of set the tone. And Damon's finally given us one. I'm going to be fair. He didn't give us one. Panthers forced that pick with J.C. Horn blocking the pass and Derek Brown, getting the interception. So so at least we didn't, lose the turnover battle, and that ended up being the story of the game. I want to talk real quick about a comment that Joshua made. He said somebody posted about contention with Wilkes and Snow earlier this week, and that Jeremy Chin and Snow aren't on talking terms. Have we heard anything about that? I haven't heard anything about that. Maybe one of our other sources have heard about that. Maybe Carolina Blitz would be able to speak more on that. But I will say this. Given the stark change that we saw in the defensive play calling in the scheme from week 1 and week 2 and today, there was some kind of come to Jesus meeting.
I agree. Absolutely. It looks like it.
Yeah, somebody said something. And it wouldn't surprise me if Steve Wilkes wasn't like, hey, man, what the hell's up with these 3-man rushes?
Right.
Why aren't we using our best players like Jeremy Chin and Frankie Louvu? What are we doing, man? And Phil Snow said, okay, I got to gamble because my job's on the line too. And it was just very nice. There were even times where the Saints picked up the blitz and Winston made a good throw. But I'll take that, considering how much we got to Jameis Winston and how much of an impact the defense setting the tone made. Jameis Winston was only sacked once today for 11-yard loss. But he was under duress most of the day. The Panthers are flying all over the field, and it was nice to see people in the other quarterback's face.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes contention is a good thing because it can be productive, and it looks like the proof was in the pudding today, man. Just such a stark contrast to what we saw yesterday. Because quite frankly, man, I kind of feel like coaching kind of blew it last week, and we're sitting here praising the coaches this week, man. So maybe they need to have more come to Jesus moments, man. Maybe they need to argue a little bit more to get this defense fired up. Because I think the proof was in the pudding, man. And I think specifically when you saw Jeremy Chin, Xavier Rhodes, J.C. Horn, who had a big day. I mean, look,
great game.
Had a great game, man. So it looks like within that secondary, mainly, it looks like, they're the ones who were saying, hey, man, we got some talent out here. Utilize us the way that we want to be utilized so we can help us win. And the proof is there.
I got to say, you can't let Chris Olave and Traquan Smith combine for over 250 yards.
Well, let me stop you right there, Kaiser. Look, I agree with Traquan Smith. Hey, you got me there. I want you to go back in your memory banks. And on our draft night podcast, when the Saints drafted Chris Olave, what did I tell y'all? I told y'all that boy was good, man. Look, there probably could have been a better game plan, but at the same time, we're blitzing so much and we're leaving Olave one-on-one. And I'm telling you that, look, I got to give that young man his props. He's good, man. So I'm not going to fault the Panthers too much about, having him go crazy, but because I'm actually really high on Olave, so I can't really agree with you there, man. But
I think the Panthers got caught off guard by Chris Olave, and I would expect that when we play the Saints again later this season, that there will be an adjustment. You just can't let Chris Olave go crazy like he did. Ended up being a moot point, though. However, I still feel like even despite that, Jameis Winston threw for 353 yards, but the Saints were behind the entire game. So, so they were, throwing the ball a lot more than the Panthers were and thus racking up those yards. Those two big plays, you give up two 50-yard plays.
Yeah.
You got to look in the film room and fix that. But that's a nitpick on the defense. I mean, they played incredibly today.
You know what? But there is one player in the secondary I got to call out, man. I have not been impressed with C.J. Henderson this year so far. It's a lot of. I mean, he had the really dumb penalty last week, which made the difference in the game last week. He got burned on another long one today, man. So I'm not seeing the C.J. Henderson that we signed, maybe 2 seasons ago, man. And I hope it's just early season rust, so to speak. But I think he's got to play better going forward, man, because I'm just not seeing it with him so far, quite honestly.
I think a lot of teams are throwing his way because J.C. Horn is that good. I think a lot of teams are avoiding, given the choice, who would you want to throw to? whose side of the field you want to throw to. And the Panthers are running a lot more man-to-man than we've seen in the past. And I think J.C. Horn, being younger, is probably a little bit faster. He can probably keep up with guys. I'm trying to think about if I've seen J.C. Horn get consistently beat. I think he got beat on a play last week. But for the most part, he's able to keep up with a guy like Olave, whereas C.J. Henderson is not.
Right.
We just ran past him on one of those. I mean, just literally ran past him, and Henderson, saw that it was a go route, and he reacted to it well, but he just didn't have the jets to keep up. So, I don't know. I'm not super sold on C.J. Henderson, but he's solid enough for this defense. I think, and plus when you got guys like Luvu and Chen on the back end, it really covers up some of the deficiencies that a guy like C.J. Henderson might have.
Speaking of Frankie Luvu, Kaza, sometimes, man, I hate how right we are sometimes, because when last year, we told everybody, we said, look, man, y'all better watch out for this young man. He's playing behind Reddick. He was playing behind Shaq. He was playing behind what's the sorry guy we gave up last year? I don't even want to remember his name. Whatever, doesn't matter, man. But I am so glad that the Panthers, it looks like, and look, it's early, but it appears the Panthers have had some foresight to say, you know what? Hey, man, Hassan Reddick, it's a little easier to say goodbye to you because we got this young man that we really believe in, Frankie Luvu. And he seems to be proving the Panthers right, man. I other than the whiffed missed tackle that he had on the third down play, other than that, man, he was great today too.
Yeah, I just can't. I'm watching this game, I'm watching Frankie Luvu play, and I'm like, man, he needs to be on somebody's Pro Bowl roster. And the sad thing is that because he's a Carolina Panther, he will probably get overlooked.
Right.
If the Panthers don't have a great season, and that's just sad. He might be the best player in the team, straight up.
Wow,
he might be because his plays are so impactful.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, they set the tone, or they change the game outright. Nobody else on either side of the ball is doing that. Maybe Christian McCaffrey on offense sometimes, but Frankie Luvu. I mean, every game he makes a big play.
Yeah, man.
Question: do y'all think the offensive line was better this week?
Absolutely.
We talked about this when we were chatting during the game.
Yeah.
We can't blame anything on the offensive line. Now, from a number standpoint, it will not look great. They allowed 3 sacks. Baker Mayfield was sacked 3 times, and they allowed 6 quarterback hits on him. But I think that's a little unfair. There were a lot of times Baker Mayfield had a ton of time to throw.
Absolutely.
And he didn't either because the receivers weren't open or he was seeing ghosts. I don't know. There were times where I'm like, what is he doing? And he would scramble unnecessarily. And I felt like now they weren't perfect in pass protection, but I felt like they did a much better job than the last 2 weeks. Or they did great in the run game as well. Christian McCaffrey, second straight week, 100 rushing yards. Chuba Hubbard had some great runs. Ike Okongwu looked pretty good in opening up running lanes. Maybe that unit is starting to gel like the defense is, and they'll get better.
Yeah. I told you last week, man, the matchup that I was kind of looking forward to more than anything was Taylor Moton versus Cam Jordan, man. And how many times did you hear Cam Jordan's name today?
None. Absolutely
Zero.
None. He didn't even have a sack today. Yeah. I'm sorry. He did have a sack. He had a sack and a hit. But, I mean, for the most part, he was not impactful.
He wasn't impactful. And the thing is, going back to those sacks, it kind of goes back to what we were saying about pass coverage by the Saints. Again, I got to give them credit, man. They cover the receivers well. So I think those sacks can be kind of looked at as coverage sacks. There's a difference between coverage sacks and then you having 0.2 seconds as soon as you hike the ball and then your defensive backfield. And we didn't see a lot of that this game, man.
I think a lot of that was scheme as well. I noticed the Panthers. I don't like to see Christian McCaffrey in blocking, but
right.
he had some really good blitz pickups.
Yeah.
And I think that's a scheme. The Panthers have finally realized, our O line needs some help. We can't leave these young guys like Christensen and O'Connell out there in these islands. They're just not quite good enough yet. So let's give them some help. And I think that was one of the reasons why we saw better play from the O line. And Baker Mayfield has to
wait now. Wait, Kaz, are you saying that the coaching staff made an adjustment this week? Is that what you're saying?
I cannot get on Matt Rule. The only thing I might get on them about is kicking or going for it on fourth down instead of
just taking the points.
Now, it would have been a very long field goal, about 48, almost 50 yards, but. Eddie Pinheiro, he hasn't missed a kick all season. I think you give the guy a chance. I know that we made fun of him in week 1. Looked like he was shook, like he didn't want to take that kick. But then he's like, put me on the field. I'm gonna kick it through. And I know what Matt Rule was thinking. Okay, the defense had been on fire today. If we don't get this, it's unlikely that the Saints would drive the length of the field and get a touchdown. We don't really lose that much. Whereas if we get it, we could possibly score a touchdown and really put the game away. I'm not going to ever get mad at a coach for thinking aggressively. So I let him slide on that. That's really the only nitpick I had for Matt Rule today. I felt like they called a pretty good game. I like the fact that they said, okay, we're going to revolve the offense around the run game. Finally, I think one of the problems they have been, the Panthers had in the first 2 weeks is they were trying to revolve the offense around Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, you can say that it's a timing thing, it's chemistry, that you can say whatever, but it just wasn't working. It was not working. So they said, okay, we're going to run McCaffrey 25 times. We're going to run Chuba Hubbard 15 times. And that worked.
I want to see more of that going forward because the thing is, I think this offense has too much talent to be one dimensional anyway. You know what I mean? I don't want to be heavy on any one thing, pass or run, man. So I like the variety. I hope that can continue going forward. I hope we figure something out with the passing game because it's still less than impressive, and that's probably being nice about it, quite honestly, man. Our leading receiver was Laviska Shenault, and half of his receiving yards were on one play. You know what I mean? Two catches for 90 yards. If I'm DJ Moore, I'm starting to think to myself, like, man, am I wasting my career here? If I'm Robbie Anderson, I'm like, damn, I got paid. I'm not really – I don't know if I'm earning my paychecks or not, man. Listen, I'm not blaming them. I'm simply saying the offense has got to figure out a way to get mainly those two more involved.
All I got to say to them is get open.
Get open.
Yeah, if you look at the best receivers of all time, I won't even go there. I'm going to take a guy like Steve Smith, who I want to talk about Steve Smith in a little bit. But Steve Smith was an elite tier receiver, although he may not have been perceived that. But teams used to game plan for Steve Smith. Absolutely. They used to roll coverage. It'd be triple coverage on Steve Smith every play. Did that stop him from getting open or getting them catches? No. And we've said a few times, maybe prematurely, that DJ Moore reminds us a lot of Smitty. And I think in terms of ability, that may be true. But he don't have
the mindset.
Right. Steve Smith was not going to let predictable route calling keep him from getting his catches. It just wasn't. And so I need Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore to have that same mentality. Look, if you want to lose your one-on-ones and be like, oh, well, it's the play calling. Hey, that's all right, whatever. Just let Laviska get all the yards. Let him and Tommy Tremble get all the catches. So
yeah.
Also, I want to talk about an underrated area that maybe won us this game. I'm gonna go back up to this comment that Toby Taylor made. Luvu or the punter is the best player.
MVP Hecker.
Every game we say this in our game chat. Hecker for MVP. He needs to be the first punter to make top 100. That dude, he's gonna coffin corner you every time. I don't care how far back it is. He gonna coffin corner you. And yeah.
Hey, Hey, look, his last punt might have won us the damn game on the low.
Yeah. Yeah, 6 punts for 281 yards today, averaging 47 yards a punt, and 4 of those were in the 20 with a long of 60 yards. That's really good stats for a punter. I mean,
that's a pretty big assist for the defense. But yeah, man.
Yeah. I mean, that makes the game easier for, like you said, for your defense. I mean, now you're forcing New Orleans to have a long field. So, special teams did good, and then a kicker, Eddie Pinheiro. I mean, he's done well. Special teams has actually played pretty well this season.
Yeah, we got a block kick today, man. We didn't talk about that.
Yes, that might have won the game. That was a huge kick, because if they make that kick, then late the Saints are not down 2 scores, but they're only 1. So yeah, I mean, the special teams, that no team ever gets like credit for like having a dominant special teams unit,
right?
But we're gonna give them the recognition they deserve.
Hey, Kaz, I got a question, man. This is also me responding to Josh's last comment, man. Do we have a plate full of crow that we're sharing today? Because it seems like we're all eating it, because Derek Brown may have heard us talking shit.
Yeah. But I think that's one of those things. Maybe the scheme was wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe whatever meeting they had, Steve Wilkes was like, Phil Snow, you suck, or whatever. They changed the scheme up, and that has allowed Derek Brown to eat a little bit more. We heard his name called multiple times today. He almost had 2 interceptions, which would have been absurd.
But you know what? I think this also needs to be mentioned as well. Here's something that here's a signing that I think is proven to be very underrated and very under the radar. I think when the Panthers signed Harry Anderson at defensive tackle, I think that really may have helped Brown, man, because I think he's making his job a little easier, quite honestly.
Harry Anderson played very well today, as well. Maybe Fitterer knows what he's doing.
Right. Maybe we don't give that guy enough credit.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Okay, all right. Offensive MVP.
Offensive MVP, I am going to go Laviska Shenault. He made the most impactful play. Sorry. And quite honestly, man, it wasn't a whole – look, I could go Christian McCaffrey because he had 25 for 108 yards. You know what I mean? But that's Christian McCaffrey. I mean, we kind of expect that out of him.
I mean, McCaffrey is the easy pick, and his ability to run the ball kind of helped put the game away late. But Laviska Shenault he had the biggest play of the game, and really it was kind of a bailout. It was a check down. Baker Mayfield had nowhere else to go. Laviska's open. So, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to hear nobody else talk about not being able to get open when this guy.
When the guy off the bench gets open. Literally.
Wide open. And you can say, well, the defense wasn't worried about him. Okay, well, hey, fair enough, but he made the most of that. He was open. He had the catch. He did what he's supposed to do. He didn't have his eyes upfield. He made the catch, secured the ball, turned upfield, and then just went. So yeah. I'm gonna offensive MVP, Laviska. Defensive MVP. Now there's a lot of people you could choose from.
I'm going J.C. Horn. I think J.C. Horn had the biggest impact today, man. I especially like the deflection he got. I think that was probably the most no, it wasn't the most impactful play. Let me take that back. But I thought J.C. Horn was all over the place today. I thought his pass coverage was good on top of what he did too, man. So I'm going J.C. Horn.
J.C. Horn had the type of performance that doesn't really show up. It won't show up in the stats. It won't show up in the books. But I'm gonna say
Mr. Louvu.
I think you got to pick Frankie Louvu.
Yeah.
He set the tone early. He didn't even have the best stats. Jeremy Chin had better stats. Jeremy Chin had 8 tackles, 6 solos, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 1 quarterback hit, and 2 passes defended. That's a big game. Jeremy had a big game, but I just feel like Luvu set the tone, and that's so important in the NFL.
Yeah,
to come out and show that you are ready to play, and you make first of all a huge play on the Saints, maybe their best player, by getting a strip fumble of Alvin Kamara that which led to a touchdown return, and that really set the tone for the game. Like,
yeah. Hey, I want to address something Tovey Taylor said in the chat, man. This young man McCall, the defensive tackle, he made a big play last week, and he also blocked a kick this week, man. So
he did have the block, yeah.
Yeah, and quite frankly, man, this young man has kind of come out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like, it's like when he is in the game, there's some big impactful play he's always making, and that's just kind of surprising and out the blue to me, man. So hopefully they can find some scenarios to kind of get him some more, have him in the game more, I guess. Yeah.
McCall had a quarterback hit and a tackle for loss. That's big. That's what you want from your defensive tackle. Real quick, Derek Brown's official stat line: 2 tackles and 2 pass deflections.
Yeah, and almost an interception.
That's crazy. But you know what I'm noticing? So if you look, both the Saints and the Panthers had 6 QB hits. Almost
Derek Brown did have an interception. I'm sorry, but go ahead.
Almost all of our QB hits came from defensive backs. Marquise Haynes Jr. was the only one that had a hit that was Brian Burns had a hit too. I'm sorry. But to see it warms my heart to see so many safeties and defensive backs get quarterback hits, because that means that the defensive coordinator is, he's bringing pressure in different ways.
Aggressive.
That's right.
Now, is it a concern that pressure's not coming from the front four, though? Is that a valid concern?
It's hard in today's NFL to get pressure just from your front four anymore, unless you have a absolute dominant pass rusher. I mean, it just is, and we don't have a dominant pass rusher. Brian Burns is very good, but his pass rush is predicated on a speed rush. He doesn't really have power or even the moves. He's just gonna blitz passes.
And not to mention, like I always say, it's okay to give the other team credit sometimes. The Saints actually do have a really good offensive line as well. So, So I'm watching the game and I'm thinking, okay, are the Saints trying to outsuck us, or is our defense playing that well? I think maybe it's a little bit of both. Yeah, I agree.
I feel like the Saints at times couldn't get out of their own way. They made some big mistakes. Yeah. However, I will say, if our offense had played better, this game would not have been close.
Absolutely.
It wouldn't have been close.
I feel like this score should have been closer to 36-14. Seriously, I really do.
Yeah. We should have been up 3 touchdowns to nothing at the end of the half.
Yeah.
Hopefully, they clean up those issues, because from here, boy, the schedule. We talked about this last week. Let's talk about it.
We better celebrate this one this week, y'all.
Yeah. So next week, we have a late afternoon game, which means the whole world is going to see us get smashed up by the Cardinals. Actually, because we're playing the NFC West the next 3 weeks, we have 3 straight afternoon games. So they're just going to see us getting our ass beat 3 straight weeks. We play the Cardinals next week, which we'll talk about the game a little bit in a bit. And then we play the 49ers, which could go either way. I wouldn't expect to win. Then we play the Rams, which is probably a loss. And then the Bucks, probably a loss. The Falcons, you got to beat the Falcons, but they're a division rival, so you never know.
Yeah.
Then we play the Bengals, which could go either way, but that's a tough game. Falcons again. Then the Ravens, tough game. Broncos, tough game. Seahawks, tough game. Steelers, tough game. Even the Detroit Lions. Right now,
the Lions ain't the same old Lions, man.
Yeah. And then we close it out at the end of the season with the Bucks and the Saints. I don't see a whole lot of wins there, man.
I don't. We said it last week too, man. We'll say it again this week. I mean, look, man. I hate to sound like a broken record, but you just got to win the ones that you, I guess, are supposed to win, or you possibly can win. I mean, you look at games like Atlanta, maybe Seattle, which I still think is going to be tough because you're at Seattle. Detroit, New Orleans is going to be upset. They're going to come in pissed off, and that's at New Orleans. I'm mentioning those games in particular because those are the ones that say, maybe we can win those, But,
right.
Man,
if they fluke up and beat the Cardinals next week, someone asked last week, "Hey, what if the Panthers win these next two and they go 2-2? Does that change things?"
Not really. Not in my opinion.
It doesn't, but I will say that beating the Cardinals on the road would be actually not on the road. That's a home game. Beating the Cardinals would be a big statement. I would reconsider the firing of Matt Rule. You get a reprieve if you were able to take down the Cardinals, particularly if you do it in a manner that shows that you've built off of this win. If we see the defense come out next week and have a great game, and then we see improvements by the offense and we win, then I might say, okay, Panthers are 2-2 after the first 4 games, which is, that's not terrible. Okay, we might have something to work with here. Yeah. If they fluke up and get a win, okay, no, it's same old Panthers. We just got lucky.
So I want to piggyback off what you said just now, man. So if I'm Jamal Tepper, right, and I'm looking at this schedule, okay, I don't know if I'm saying to myself, playoffs are bust, because I'm looking at the schedule. Josh, you were funny, man. but in all seriousness, I'm looking at this schedule and I'm going to ask myself, is my team, are we built to win 8-9 games with this schedule? So if I say no, if the answer is no, the next thing I look at is, are we simply playing better? Kind of alluding to what you just said. Is the coaching staff building off a win? Are we getting better every week? What does getting better every week look like? To me, it looks like you're at least competing with the Cardinals and the Rams and the Bucks and the Bengals. You're at least competing with these teams. You're not just getting your ass kicked every week, okay? So quite simply, if we play better, then maybe I'm second guessing whether I keep rooting around.
Let me play devil's advocate. We're one blown referee call away from being 2-1.
2-1, absolutely.
If the refs make the correct call on the fake spike in Cleveland, we win the game. And that's it. We win the game.
Right.
Game in which Baker Mayfield, to his credit, brought us back and put us in position to win the game.
Yeah.
So, it's the beginning of the season is always difficult to. I've always looked at the first 4 weeks of the season as like an extension of the preseason, and I think that's even more correct this year, considering the preseason is shortened. So I think it's really hard to say definitively after 4 weeks, if the Carolina Panthers are good or bad. I'll say this: I don't think we're last in the league like ESPN predicted us to be.
Right.
And I mean, I think that we're probably not, a lock to make the playoffs, obviously. We're somewhere in the middle of that.
Yeah.
And I think if we can at least be competitive against the Cardinals, then I'm not going to say I'll be satisfied or happy, but I won't be tearing down my Carolina Panthers banners. So.
I got it.
Okay, so go ahead.
I was gonna say we got predictions for next week.
Yeah, that's where I was going. Okay, next week we play the Cardinals. We're only 1-1. Pending today's. Right now they are losing to the Rams 10-0 in the first. But I get the feeling that the Cardinals are a better team than the Carolina Panthers. However, right now, the matchup predictor has us with a 50% chance of winning. Also, last week, the matchup predictor had the Carolina Panthers favored, so maybe they know something we don't. I don't know.
Right.
But right now, it gives us a slight chance of winning by 0.6%. Points per game, the Cardinals 25 points, the Panthers 20 points. Now, here's the thing. The Cardinals defense is not good. They are very bad, actually. Like, bottom of the league bad.
Yeah.
How do you see that playing out? But they have Kyler Murray. So
I'm glad you mentioned that. So historically, Kyler Murray has not played that well against the Panthers. And coupled with the fact that defense is terrible, and coupled with the fact that this is a home game, and on top of that, for some reason, and I know, look, historical context means nothing from week to week, but to add some historical context to this, for some reason, when we are in a tough spot, our wins always seem to come against the Cardinals for some reason. With all that being said, I'm actually going to pick us to win again next week against the Cardinals. Yeah, I am. And quite interestingly enough, I'm a lot more confident saying that this week than I was last week. Yeah, so I'm actually going to pick us to beat the Cardinals. I'm going to go 28-20. Yeah.
Okay. If the offense fixes the problems that they had this week, they win. I think they win. The Cardinals defense is not good. They can't stop the run or the pass. And their offense is better than Carolina's, but I do think our defense can mitigate that some. Okay. It really depends on how well we're able to contain Kyler Murray. The question is, do I have faith and confidence that the offense is going to take the necessary steps to improve next week, particularly
and that's more than fair. Right. Yeah.
Which is where they need to improve. The Arizona Cardinals give up 360 passing yards a game. So, if I'm a quarterback, an offense coordinator, I'm licking my chops, right? You got to think you're going to come out and play well against a defense that is so weak against the pass. But I'm just not confident that they're going to do that.
And that's fair.
So I'm gonna pick the Carolina Panthers to lose, to do a very Carolina thing and lose, like play well and then lose. It'll be like 32-28 or something like that. It'll be like actually okay. My official pick will be 28-24 Arizona. Like we'll score 24 points and then we'll say, well, that should be enough to win. But it'll be like we'll be down 2 touchdowns and Baker Mayfield will like go off like late and tie the game up, and then Kyler Murray will have some miracle scramble play, and it'll be something like that. Football. All right. We're actually going to talk about the Charlotte Hornets for a little bit. Well, hold on. I do want to address one more thing. Jeffrey Miller had a question. If Rule wins a couple here and there, is he safe? Rule needs to go. He needs to go at least 500.
Yeah.
If the Panthers go 500, I think Tepper may give him another year.
Yeah.
If they have a losing record, I think he's gone.
I'll just kind of repeat what I said. I think I kind of want to throw record out the window, surprisingly, because I just think this schedule is kind of unfair to us, quite honestly. I just think we kind of judge Rule by how prepared the team looks and how well we play. And I'm going to keep the answer that simple. Yeah.
Okay, this is a scorching hot take. I want to address this before we go talk the Hornets. There's an offense coordinator calling bad particular plays to become the interim head coach. Now, McAdoo was an NFL coach. He led the Giants to their last winning season. I'm going to say no. I'm going to just assume that Ben McAdoo is professional. And there's too much uncertainty with people's careers in the NFL because, if they fire Matt Rule, they may say, everybody's gone.
Right. So that's really rolling the dice doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, I just don't think that Ben McAdoo is like a great offensive coordinator. He's good enough to be offensive coordinator in the NFL, but I just don't think he's like a great offensive coordinator. When he was in New York, he had Saquon Barkley to lean on, and I don't see that. And Chanel needs to get a bigger role.
Absolutely. I think we can all question why he was on the damn bench in the first place. Quite honestly, I guess they wanted to give him time to get acclimated to the offense. He was kind of a late acquisition. He came in at the tail end of preseason, so I'll give them a pass and say maybe they were just trying to get him acclimated to the offense. But otherwise, you look at this game, you're like, why the hell was this guy not playing to begin with? So,
yep. Okay, on to the Hornets. Joshua says he's leaving.
Oh, you're lying. Stop it. You're gonna stick around and talk about the big.
Okay, so Steve Clifford in an interview this week made a very interesting comment.
I knew you were going to start off with Steve Clifford.
Made a very interesting comment. Okay, he said he was asked who has impressed him the most on the roster so far, and he named two names. First name obvious. He said LaMelo Ball. I mean, it's LaMelo Ball. He's the best player. Of course, he's going to impress you, right?
Right.
And then he said Nick Richards. Now, I thought about this because a lot of people are like, Nick Richards? And we've been lukewarm on Nick Richards. I've always liked Nick Richards because I like natural.
Everybody except our friend Chris Galloway, who I don't know if he's watching or not.
Nick Richards, that's his dad, I think. His secret dad. So I like natural 7-footers, and I like what Nick Richards was able to bring when he played well. Sometimes his feet got stuck in cement defensively, but he wasn't like terrible. But I think about it, and I think about that in the signing of Dennis Smith Jr. as a backup point guard this week. Doesn't Nick Richards just seem like a Steve Clifford kind of player?
Doesn't Dennis Smith Jr. Does that not have Steve Clifford written all over it?
Yeah, those are. So given that signing and Steve Clifford's comments, I'm not surprised. Like this is feeling very Steve Clifford-ish, which I don't think that's a good thing for the Hornets. I don't think it is.
All right, let me before we talk about that, let me address your Nick Richards comment first. To me, I'm not saying it's good or bad yet, but to me it makes sense, and here's why. Steve Clifford has always liked big 7-footers who can defend the rim. Nick Richards can do that. Now, the weakness that you talk about with Nick Richards is kind of his awareness. Can he defend a pick and roll? Does he know where to be defensively? Can he stop committing the stupid fouls? Basically, young player stuff, right? If I'm Steve Clifford, I'm probably thinking to myself, I can fix that stuff. I'm not worried about the young player stuff. I can fix Nick Richards. So if he can give me the guarding the rim and the rebounding and the athleticism on the offensive end, I can make Nick Richards what he is. And now, here's why I'm saying this. Because like I know, Clifford has his reclamation projects. Every team he goes on, he always picks some guy, some cast-off, right? He's always picking some cast-off that he's kind of made better in some ways. This is why Nick Richards and Dennis Smith Jr. are kind of related, because I think the same thing with Dennis Smith, who we'll talk about a lot more later, but I'm going to explain why he is also what I think is a Steve Clifford reclamation project as well. So, but again, I want to save some for Dennis Smith for later.
Yeah, I feel like so I know a lot of people are going to want to see Mark Williams get playing time this season. I'm here to tell y'all,
it might not happen.
If he came out publicly and said, "Man, I really like Nick Richards," guess what?
Y'all gonna be disappointed.
You're gonna be disappointed. So prepare to see that. The reason that scares me is because say what you want about James Borrego's time here, there was a stark contrast in the way the Hornets were on the court in Borrego's time and Steve Clifford's time.
Absolutely.
Under Steve Clifford, the Hornets were very offensively, they're very half-court oriented, defensively as well. They got back, they got in their defensive set, and they didn't play a lot of zone. And then on offense, a lot of pick and roll, half-court sets, relying on their big man to catch the ball and do whatever. The Hornets, who, by the way, were ended the season with the number 3 offense in the league and leading the league in 3-point shooting percentage, do not play basketball that way. They did not under James Borrego. They ran the court a lot. They They try to avoid half court sets.
Yep.
They used a lot of movement. And the only thing that they didn't run a lot of pick and roll, they ran a lot of screens to get shooters open to shoot. I'm wondering how are players going to respond to that? Because when you say Nick Richards is my guy, by the way, we signed Dennis Smith Jr., that harkens back to we're going back to half court sets.
Yeah.
We're going back to we're going to have LaMelo running pick and rolls, and we're going to see a lot of to the basket plays. Man, I wish Cody Zeller was here. That's what we're going to see from Steve Clifford. That's what I'm afraid we don't want to see that as Hornet fans. We already saw that and it didn't work. I would rather, if the Hornets are going to be a mediocre team, I'd rather them be mediocre in the best in the league.
An exciting mediocre team.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. But okay, let me offer you some hope, Kaiser. I'm going to offer you some hope. Look, I agree with you, but I'm also going to offer some hope. Steve Clifford has also made mention how he has to bring balance to this team. He can't coach this team exactly how he coached the Bobcats / Hornets teams. Now, one thing to offer some hope with, he has better personnel. Let's get that very clear, okay?
Yep.
This ain't Gerald Henderson and Michael Kidd Gilchrist on the wing. All right, let's start there. All right. Now, if he can balance what he did with those teams and make this team just fine tune this team a little more, kind of rein them in just a little bit, but don't take away from what they really are, it could be a good thing. I think he has to bring some elements that Borrego did offensively to this tenure with the Hornets to make it successful. He again, we can't be slow down, half court, pick and roll, run 20 seconds off the shot clock. Like you said, that's not how this team is designed. However, this team does have to be a bit more disciplined than they were last year. That was my knock on Borrego last year, is that sometimes he gave the keys to the Ferrari to the players a little too much. Sometimes it resulted in dumb turnovers and bad shot selection and all that kind of stuff, man.
If I had any knock on James Borrego, it was everyone had a green light. People can say all they want that he held LaMelo Ball back. That wasn't the case at all. Everybody could shoot. I saw LaMelo Ball taking 35-foot 3-pointer, down the 10 points in the fourth quarter. No, everyone got to do what they wanted to do under James Borrego. That won't happen.
Name me another coach in the league who will let their second-year dude do that. Name me one coach in the league who will do outside of Steph Curry. Nobody else is doing that.
Even Steph Curry couldn't do that. Mark Jackson wouldn't let Steph Curry do that back in the day. Do you think since they retain a lot of the coaching staff from JB, they'll help Steve adjust to the offense? Yeah, I think they'll say to Clifford, here's who does what best and where they need to be. Yeah,
right. No doubt.
And the thing about Steve Clifford, he's super stubborn. I hate to bring up the Frank Kaminsky, the playoff game against Miami.
Right.
7 years ago now?
2016, I think. Yeah.
In which we all know how that story went. The Hornets were losing in the playoffs to the Miami Heat. Frank Kaminsky, who had been brought in to play the 5, had played a stretch 4 all season. Michael Jordan publicly comes out and like, hey, man, play this dude center. Play him at the center spot. And Steve Clifford begrudgingly plays him at the center spot, and he has a great – and the Hornets win. He had a really, really good game, and he never played him at the center spot again. So, if his coaching staff that was retained from Borrego is telling him, well, hey, you need to put JT Thor in these situations, how much is Steve Clifford going to be like, okay, yeah, sure. Or if he's going to be like, nah, man, I want JT Thor to, play the stretch 4. I want him to sit in the corners and wait for 3-pointers, whatever game plan he has for him. How much has Steve Clifford really, really changed?
Yeah. And Swagner, I think that might have been probably the most important thing the Hornets probably did this offseason. And I know that's really under the radar, and most people don't care about who's on the coaching staff. But I think that is of the utmost importance, quite honestly, man. And the thing is, just going back to hoping Steve Clifford kind of now, it is important to mention God, Walker Mel. He's a media personality. He does a lot of work with the Hornets. He interviewed Steve Clifford. Now, Steve Clifford did mention, hey, there are some things I really could have done better when I in my first team with the Bobcats Hornets. So here's the hoping that he gets it, that he kind of has to be this chameleon and adjust to the roster that he actually has. So we'll see going forward, man.
All right, let's talk about Dennis Smith Jr. I just want to say this to fans. If you are upset about the signing, go be a fan of the Knicks, I guess, or whatever. Ball is not leaving because we signed Dennis Smith Jr., okay, guys?
That won't be the reason, y'all. We promise.
It's not the straw that broke the camel's back.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, the Hornets have a backup point guard now. We had talked about Kemba and IT, but I don't think that Steve Clifford really wants either of those guys. But Dennis Smith Jr., I think, is the kind of guy that Steve Clifford will like.
Now, here's the thing. What did I say? Reclamation project. This has Steve Clifford written all over. Now, to talk about Dennis Smith Jr., man, we forget Dennis Smith Jr. was a lottery pick. He was picked 7th, man. He was picked very high.
Promising rookie season.
Yeah.
Like, very good rookie season.
Yeah, averaged 15-5 his rookie season, man. So I said it to say, like, the talent level is definitely there. But as we know, talent doesn't always make you successful in the NBA. No. So Dennis Smith is a guy who's super talented, but has never found a way to put it together in the NBA. Now, how does that relate to Steve Clifford? Steve Clifford loves guys like this. Now, we look at how terrible Michael Carter-Williams was with the Hornets. The very next year, he goes to Orlando, which was coached by Steve Clifford, and he's a whole lot better than he was there than he was here. So I'm guessing Steve Clifford looked at this and said, you know what? Here's another guy that I think I can maybe not fix, but I can get more out of than other coaches have. I'll put it to you like that. Maybe Clifford says, you know, hey, he's 6'4", he's athletic, he can defend. You know, there's still a hitch in his shot. He doesn't shoot the ball like you want him to. But I think Steve Clifford probably, again, says those are things that I think I can fix with Dennis Smith Jr.
Yeah, Dennis Smith Jr., to Chris Galloway's point, NCW had a good rookie here as well. But Dennis Smith Jr. was derailed a little bit by injuries after being in Dallas and then being traded to New York. And then he's just seen a decrease in minutes since then. And he's played, I think the fact that he's not a good shooter hurts his development in today's NBA.
Yeah.
He's only 24 years old.
24 years old, yeah.
He's back in his home state. He went to school, NC State's from Vietnam. I think it's a good pick. I'm perfectly okay with Dennis Smith Jr. If he can add something to this team. Now, I will say that his lack of three-point shooting is a concern because when Isaiah Thomas came off the bench, he could shoot the three.
Yeah.
Whereas we would lose that with Dennis Smith Jr. being on the floor. So I'm wondering how these rotations are going to look with Dennis Smith Jr. on the floor, not having a point guard that can shoot the three, which is essential in today's NBA. Now, fortunately, he's just a backup. So, I mean, how many minutes is he realistically going to get? 15, 17, maybe a little more.
Especially in year 3 of LaMelo. I listen, man, I think year 3 is the year where LaMelo may really make a jump. And God knows if we don't need it this year. So I think that's important to look out for.
Tim, and this is a lofty expectation, but given LaMelo's confidence and his work ethic, I expect him to make a Ja Morant kind of leap.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like,
and I think it's fair to do that.
Yep, like Ja did, like Trey did, like Luka did, although Luka was really
good.
He was that good, like as a rookie, like from day one. But I expect LaMelo to make that kind of leap. And if he does, then I think the Hornets are gonna be okay.
One thing that is really important to note with Dennis Smith Jr., he was signed to an unguaranteed contract. And I think that is important to note because they're probably looking at that like, all right, you are a reclamation project. And if we don't like you going into camp, we can cut you without having to pay you, which then leaves the door open for whomever else they may want to sign at that point. And I think that's important to note.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we talked about this before. The Miles Bridges situation has kind of messed up the offseason and the roster building.
That's an understatement.
And so we just don't know what's going to happen with that. I'm at the point now where I think we may actually see Miles Bridges play at the end of this season, maybe. But yeah, we just don't know if Miles Bridges is able to play. I don't think he'll play at the beginning of the season, but if he is, then the Hornets are. They'll be fine if everyone makes the jumps that we expect them to make. We also expect bigger things from Bucknight, Kai Jones, JT Thor, the young guys.
Yeah.
I think we'll be okay. All right. Shout outs.
Oh man, who do I want to shout out, man? Shout out to my Florida State Seminoles, who are 4-0, because this time last year we were 0-4. Our tests have not came yet because we got some tests coming up, man. We got NC State, we got Wake Forest, thinking Clemson's in there somewhere, man. So I'm just happy to say that Florida State is undefeated for now. I'll take it, man. Shout at. Do I have anybody to shout at, man? I don't think I have any shout ats today. I'm a happy dude today, man. So no shout ats today, man.
Fair enough. I'm gonna shout at Ime Udoka.
How could I forget?
former coach of the Boston Celtics. Bro. So I saw a Twitter comment that said, "Bro done lost 2 rings in the same season."
Oh man. What are we doing, man?
Bro, I mean, you fumbled the bag. You fumbled the bag, the suitcase, everything.
The carry-on, the purse, the man bag.
Everything, bro. First of all, okay, Nia Long is, yeah. But, hey, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, what goes on in a house, okay? It may not be a great relationship, okay? All right. But you don't dip your pen in company ink. Especially not in the sports world. We, for those of you that are Hurricanes fans, might know what happened over there with someone from their broadcast team. She wasn't even with the organization. Was caught having an affair with one of the married Hurricanes players. She is now looking for a job because he left. He bounced in free agency. He was like, "All right, I'm done." Peace. And now she's looking for a job in the sports world. Don't do that, bro.
No,
and if the rumors are true that it was a Celtics executive wife, he was bro, what are you doing?
Well, I guess the good news is, if the Hornets have a bad season and Clifford gets fired, man, at least he'll be out there.
Hire him. Bring him here.
Let's go.
Buzz City.
But on the flip, on the flip side, man, I don't know if I can trust that decision making, bro. Like if I'm a player, I'm like, hey man, I ain't listening to you.
Here's the thing. Your first team meeting with everyone's thinking, I'd be like, bro, you know what you did. Oh man, I feel sorry for that brother too, man, because black coaches in every pro sport don't get the recognition or the opportunities that they deserve, and this is going to bring me to my second shout at the media and this whole Brett Favre situation. Now, I understand that Brett Favre is a retired player, and I do think that if he was still active, what he did would be getting a lot more press coverage than it is currently getting. But the problem is that Brett Favre has been revered by the league and sports media for 25 years now, and now we're seeing that he was just an absolutely terrible person. Although the signs were there, but now we know for sure he's a terrible person. And guess what? Ime Udoka did was, I'm not even going to say it was, I mean, at worst, it was unethical and maybe immoral, depending on where you stand on that.
Right.
But that is nothing compared to what Brett Favre did. I mean, he stole money from the people in the poorest state in the union. Yeah, he should absolutely be in prison. And I don't know how I feel about Hall of Fame players being shunned from the Hall of Fame or taken out of the Hall of Fame based on misdeeds that they did. But he should, that reverence that he has in the league should be gone.
Right. Absolutely.
But instead, it was like when the thing with Ime Udoka happened, it was like, woo, okay, we don't have to talk about Brett Favre now. Instead, we can talk about this guy cheating on Nia Long. And it's kind of sad, man.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's the media not wanting to admit they were wrong about this guy the entire time. Here's a guy that John Madden absolutely loved. All the media personalities, they loved his personality and his flair for the game and how much fun he had while playing football. And he's the best quarterback in this storied franchise's history. So now they have to erase everything that they've ever said about this guy. And that's really hard for the media, I'm guessing. But whatever.
They're not going to do that. They want us to forget about this, but we're not going to forget. The people of Mississippi shouldn't forget. To end the show on a positive note, I am not, admittedly, I'm just not a huge WNBA fan. But congrats to the Las Vegas Aces.
I guess. Whatever.
For winning the WNBA finals. I've said this on the show before. Make the WNBA season concurrent with the NBA season.
I agree.
I know they feel like if you do that, people will not watch the WNBA because the NBA is on. But people aren't watching it anyway. So you put it on in the middle of the season. People need basketball to watch. Their team's not playing. They decide to flip over. They watch their WNBA team. They see some good basketball. It will spark interest. If you keep holding the WNBA finals first of all, at the beginning of the NFL season,
that's never going to work.
Which is terrible. And in the NBA offseason, you will just never garner interest with it, and the league is going to have to fold. I mean, it's been on live support for 2 decades now. So
now I will say this, as someone who has become way more interested in the WNBA, and I have started really, really watching again, viewership is slightly up. This season, it's been up more than it has been in the past. I don't know if you can attribute that to the Brittany Griner situation or whatever, or as a marketing ploy. I don't want to say ploy, but a boost in marketing in some weird way. I don't know if you want to put it on that or not, but viewership is up. And to me, again, I don't want to bang this drum too much, but from my eyes, the WNBA really does have a good product. I think now you have to kind of capitalize on the positive things that did happen for the WNBA. Now, to your point, they may want to switch it up because if you do that concurrent with the NBA season, I agree that may spark a little more interest, and you're not competing with the king of the jungle, which is the NFL. Put it on after perfect. I got the perfect idea. Just came up with it. Why don't you wait till after football season and start the WNBA season, maybe in February or right after the Super Bowl, concurrent? Because you got to remember the season is not as long as the NBA season is.
Right.
So if you run it with the NBA season and it runs a little past the NBA season, I think you got yourself some really good momentum there.
Oh, absolutely. People are going to be hungry for basketball
right now. We got it all figured out.
I mean, yeah, they just need to come to Under Construction. Let us set y'all straight. We'll get y'all right.
Hello.
Right. But alas, we're just 2 guys on YouTube, and that are happy for one more week because the Carolina Panthers won. So yeah. So you guys, everyone, take care. Thanks for coming in the show. All the comments, we really, really love seeing you guys here every week. Hopefully, we'll be happy next week if Jamal is right and we get this win against the Cardinals. I don't see it, bro.
All right, man. Well, till next time, brother.
All right, y'all take care. Peace.